join, start, and yes, like every time. So the theme of today's talk or today's session is conscious parenting. And I have put this question for us to explore also by the end of this session. Who gave birth to whom? Uh, so let's start with our initial intention setting. Like always, so just sit comfortably. If you're on a chair, like let your feet be on the ground, your back supported. Gently close your eyes. Bring your attention to your breath. May we be Saath together. May we be Jigyasu, curious. May we be Virya, energetic. May our learning be Tejasvi, bright. Shanti, Sukun, peace. Good. Hi, good evening, Sudeep. Good morning, Yamini.
Good evening.
Morning. Yes. Yamini, you can hear me? No. Yamini can't hear me. Yeah. Others are so could some of your speaker setting. Hi, good evening, Ruby.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Sandeep.
Good. So, as I was just saying, this is I think the first session, so it's a little different for me also. This is the first session I'm starting with no experiential learning in this as a parent. So what am I doing here? So I thought I'll first try and set the expectation. Maybe this should have been in the message itself, but I think first this is not based on any experiential learning as a parent of a child. And but so what though I have learned something in my journey as a child to an adult, uh, both of myself and others. Right? So as a coach, as a therapist, I do work with people, support people on their own relationship and with their children. I've sort of had a vicarious or not vicarious, but yeah, proxy distant, some lessons from there, some frameworks also. So what I think I'm trying to do in this is share something. So you won't get some any specific advice. That's hard in this common generic session. So anything here, please put it in your context, not clear, set up a one-on-one. I'm happy to chat, support, but no specific advice from me because it won't be based on anything experiential from my side. So it'll just be information, not knowledge. So there's no gyan, no knowledge here. But you could still get some approach to conscious parenting. I think that's the hope from this going forward, at least from this session. Yeah. So with that, let's get started. Yamini, are you able to hear now or still no? Yamini? No? Still figuring out her sound, but okay. So hopefully she will. Okay. So I think as we start, this is what I set up. What is conscious parenting? And I think the question I said in the start is who gave birth to whom? Right. So a parent relationship is typically seen as obviously I'm presuming right now all of you are parents who come here. So you along with your partner gave birth to a child or to a set of children, right? So that's a fact. Some children at different ages, as we are discussing, each one of you. But also, and I think is a child also gave birth to the parent within you. I think this is the basic premise of conscious parenting. So unless at least according to me, this is the basis of it. This premise that the child has also given birth to the parent within you. So still, your first child, you weren't a parent, and the parent within you was dormant, or at least the desire to have a child is maybe the first time the parent within you was born, or was at least conceived just when the child was also conceived. So you can almost see this journey in parallel. And that's what sort of we'll try and see today. Like there is a journey which, while your child is having, it's also a journey for you. And we'll use some of those sort of at least ways to understand this, how this is. So what will we cover today? So at first, I'm going to share some models of child development, right? So how, or rather human development, not even child, how human development. So some models of human development, because this is about human development. This is about a child growing as well as I said, the parent growing. So this is about human development. So some stages, a model. In that context, what can be the role of a parent? Because then only we can talk of conscious parenting or parenting. And lastly, some things that a parent can do. And there, I think I'm hoping in both of the second part, it will be more sharing. Each of you can share and learn from each other. I'll share some things that I have also seen. Okay. So is this fair enough? Anything? I know there are some questions. I also received some questions from some of you. I'm hoping some of these you'll start seeing them in a different way and then maybe find some answers. If not, then we can again discuss with this context in mind. But these are sort of the questions I'm looking to answer. To just have some framework, some model of development in that context to see what's the role of a parent, role of a maybe child in that context, and then what can a parent do? Because this is finally still about conscious parent. Yeah, make sense? Yes, Sudeep.
Hi. Sorry, I thought I will just share the thought at the beginning because you have kind of said defined the agenda. So one of the things, and I kind of mulled over it, that means you put it very nicely, that when a child is born, also a parent is born. And I have two children, so know that and kind of experience that. But one of the things that I always felt that the becoming a parent is a conscious choice, right? Or trying to become a parent is a conscious choice. However, we practically have no guide or no support in understanding when is the time for me to become a parent and how should prepare to be a parent.
Yes.
So I am bringing in another life into this life, and we find a practically think of it like a biological process, right? If you have that means, sorry, most of the time you get married after 9 months, 10 months, people start asking. That means we have brought it down to a transaction,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
However, nobody ever asked that, are you emotionally, physically, mentally ready to be a parent? So how to me, that is a huge problem, because a lot of problems I feel of the child happens because that is where the parents start.
Yeah, sure.
Just a thought.
Yes, yes. And that's why at least the purpose of this is to this framework, the model I'm going to share is to start thinking as a parent or what's happening in the journey of human development. And we'll see wherever each one of you is. Finally, it's a personal journey. There is a social issue larger. I think we're not at least there to address that right now. First is just personally what each one of us in our own context, in our own environment, whatever we can do. And be more conscious as parents, like more aware, mindful as parents. Okay. Okay. So let's see some model. We'll look at actually largely two models of human development or stages of child development. So the first one is coming. This is a more modern Western view. So this I actually learned in my SE, the somatic experiencing workshop or training that I did. And this comes, the stages of human development comes from this called body dynamics, so biodynamics analysis. It's a new somatic psychology founded in Denmark by Lisbeth Marcher and colleagues. So this is credit to them. These slides also largely that you will see the text. I've simplified it, but the other words are the same. It's by my teachers from Somatic, Dennis and Efu. They are teachers in Brazil. They run this organization, AFIA, and it's from them. So the credit is to them. I have used it. I have not taken their permission, but I am using it. And I'm also, I don't think a full expert. I am also, I don't know, I know I'm not a full expert. I'm still learning through some of, as I said, my practical experiences in working with various participants, clients. In my work, in one-on work, I do see some patterns fitting in and sort of work with that. So this model comes from somatic psychology. So what that somatic, as you know, means the soma, the body, and psychology is the mind. So this is coming from saying how an integrated mind-body development of a child probably is expected to happen. And a lot of times it comes from the lens of where that disruption happens, and later on in life, you see the effects of that disruption. So I'm not going to talk of disruptions, but I'm going to more sort of lay down what is expected. So you will see like a timeline in the journey, some time ranges when that development or what kind of development in the body, in the nervous system and in the mind happens. The physical physiology is evolving, but the mental and the nervous system evolution, how probably is expected or how evolution sort of in their understanding came up with. And then we will see another model. So this is one model. This is not the only model. There are many other models even in West, and we'll look at another model. So I'm not going to go too deep, but move quickly through this because this is quite elaborate. Otherwise, we'll spend the whole time and more on this. Okay. So with that context, let me get into the model. So it says the first stage one is called existence. And this is in the womb and 3 months after birth. This is where the physiology, the body, the soma, the mind that is getting cultivated in the child is the right to exist and a sense of being alive. This is the most tricky phase, as we know. This is when also infant mortality is very risky. So what the physiology of the child is trying to grapple with is just this, a sense of existence, the right to exist and a sense of being alive. And you can see if any threat or any lack of safety in this context sometimes has different kinds of challenges in the nervous system. But this is the first stage. The second stage, which goes from 1 month to 18 months, right? This is about 12 to 18 months, 1.5 years. It's satisfaction of basic needs in relationship with parents, leading to beginning of self-regulation. So this word self-regulation essentially means our nervous system is designed to self-regulate. And the basis of that self-regulation of our nervous system is in safety, is in relating with the external, in relating first with the parents. And this is the time when parents play a very different role. The touch of a mother, the touch of a father, being close, all intimacy, the physical intimacy, all that comfort is building at this stage for the child, right? So they are building a sense of need, right? That neediness, if there is satisfaction, neediness is less. So this is very important from that sense around that relationship is building, and a level of self-regulation starts getting cultivated at this stage. The next stage is called autonomy. This is happening from, it starts, so you can see there is already overlap. That is ending at 18 months, this is 8 months. So there's no hard and fast timelines, but around this time, it happens at different times for different children. So it's very, very good. So it's 8 months to 2.5 years, right? This is curiosity and exploration with the body. This is when, as we can see, crawling, walking, speech, some sense of autonomy, in the body is coming, where some sense of independence in the body, taking some of these active functions is happening in the body, right? So first is existence, need, autonomy. So there's a lot of curiosity, exploration. This is when you have to be careful when you baby proof, right? They don't poke their whole finger in the wrong hole out of curiosity. They don't eat mud. This is what they will do. They will play. They will move a lot. Even in animals, we see they are even fighting in their play, right? There's a lot of movement, exploration in the body movement, right? So somatic sense is moving. It results in these basic functions of crawling, walking, talking. This is the time when that happens. So that exploration is very important here at this stage. The next stage is will. This is the mental part now. So autonomy is about body, will is about the mind. This is in that 2 to 4 year time. This is when independent, separating thinking, intentions, actions, making choices, like even starting with what dress to wear, what color I like. So these are kinds of choices, the will, the intention setting, all that is getting cultivated. That's a special area in the brain. And this time a lot of thinking processes evolve around this and correlation between intention and action. So this kind of plays, etc., with the hands, with the body again, but also combining it with their intention. That matching has to happen. So will is getting developed at this stage. So the next is again some overlap 3 to 6. This is where again the concept of love with a little bit with the opposite gender is building. This is not hormonal, but this is where heart, sexual feeling, romantic, all that is getting integrated. It's the first sense of this is getting developed on what this means. There is a certain innocence here because the chemistry hasn't evolved. So this is where it can get cultivated or starts getting cultivated in a slightly different way. The next stage is around opinion forming. This is where opinions are getting embodied. We'll see anger sometimes if that's not getting fulfilled. This is around some rules, some norming culture is happening. This is 5 to 9 years. So we haven't reached the teens or adolescence yet. Again, this is pre-puberty. You are building some rules, some norming culture, some boundaries are getting set. You're getting a sense of your body. Starting to, the nervous system is evolving more. You're standing more clear. So your embodiment of opinions is happening at this stage. This is when you're becoming some social sense starts happening, not fully, again, pre-teen, pre-adolescence, but you are building skills. You can see these ladders, slides. So a lot more of bodily functions of coordination is evolving at this stage. And you're seeing, right, based on where your children are, some of before, after, you can think also how the history has been, all of that probably is going on. And then the next, which is sort of the adolescence stage, 13 to 25. So this is when neurologically the prefrontal cortex, particularly the thinking brain, is evolving. A lot of this is the most transition, chemistry is changing, this transition from childhood to adulthood, independence, a little bit of the self and identity is forming. Social is very big. Peer, this is where the peer pressure, peer learning happens massively. So this is where social function is there. Now the sexual identity, the clarification, because again, the sexual process is started, puberty has started, the chemistry is changing, some sense of moral values, self-direction, because the prefrontal cortex, the conceptual part where we are integrating functions now, making meaning in life, meaning about the world, that's happening. So relationships are getting formed. So this is that age where a lot is happening. And this is, I think, still in the Western model, not still evolving this understanding. That's why it's not yet broken up. So this is what happens in the West, right? So when you understand more clearly, they will get more specific. Right now, 13 to 25 is a blob where they're seeing a lot happening. And this, while this age is 13 to 25, my sense is it's not that rigid 13. So it's easy to see teens, but this may start early, late, based on how, again, the chemistry is changing. This is not, and how the social structure is changing, where they are. So as you can see, the social side, the peer side is playing a very important role in this phase, right? So it may, so don't take the numbers as that hard and fast. So yes, there is 9 to 12 here, and the reason I think they do this in the Western side is because, again, pediatrician, the MD pediatrician is supposed to work till 12. And after that, it's no longer a pediatrician. In the West, from what I understand, even in India, that's the concept. Some vaccinations are linked with this 12 and beyond 12. But this aspect of growth of this learning is not, there is no rigid boundary, because you've seen in every other, there is overlap. There is 5 to 9, 3 to 6, 2 to 4, 2.5. So all this, there is overlap. So this can't be that clear cut as it's made out, right? So there is again an overlap. So the important thing is there is evolution, there is movement, and it's a lot, right? There is a lot changing at different stages of life, of the development cycle, different parts, and different things are happening in their physiology, in their nervous system, in their brain, in the physical nervous system across the body, as well as in the brain. So for example, one of the things, even just walking, the act of walking evolves till almost you are 12 years. We think we have learned walking when we are 2. And we think, now the child knows how to learn walking. But actually the spinal cord, the other parts of the nervous system are still evolving. And the real full adult-like walking only happens around that time. It really gets set. Till that time, they're still learning. Still the nervous system is getting set in terms of walking. So this is constantly evolving. Now this, as you can see, is what the Western system, and I'll go through the other one and then take a pause to see if there are questions, comments, etc. But as you can see, this is 8th stage. And already it seems like a lot of overload. I'm pretty sure there's so much I have said in this time. So the one that I found more more acceptable, more sort of easy, let me put it, is how I have understood it till now. For human development or a human journey, I see it in 3 phases. I see phase 1, birth to pre-adolescent, right? Adolescent being when puberty is coming, chemistry is changing. There is one phase around that. There is a phase 2, which is adolescence itself. Very important, very, very different. It's completely different in terms of, like we saw, physiology, the social structure. You're discovering yourself in multiple ways. You're making meaning of the world in different ways. Your neurology, your brain, the prefrontal cortex, which really defines a lot, which is what really differentiates us as Homo sapiens and humans than all other mammals, right? This prefrontal cortex. This forms, I think, 30% of our brain. And in any other mammal, even chimpanzees, I think it's less than 10. And others, it goes to 2-3%. So this part of our brain, which we see here, right? You can see already. And one way I learned was this is vertical almost. In every other skull, you will see it's like this, including in like Neanderthals, Homo erectus, all the previous evolutions. It's like this. So this part of our brain where this prefrontal cortex remains is the largest in Homo sapiens, 30% plus. And this is what is evolving in this phase. And that's why it's a separate phase, phase 2. And then phase 3 is adulthood, when physiologically we have evolved, right? So this is the physiological evolution. The somatic, the psychological evolution also happens in this, but it need not always follow this. And the reason I take this 3 stage, because this is how I have understood the story, which some of you may have seen, how we covered the journey, the role model journey that we saw of the journey of Ramayana, right? So if you see the Ramayana, the journey of Ram, to me, that's like role model of how human development has to happen. And that also moves, the journey of Ram is described in 3 phases. And that the first phase is, this phase is, I see it as prepare. This is the time when Ram was in the Gurukul. He was sent in Gurukul after the survival. He was sent in Gurukul. He was with a guru where he was learning these things. This is preparation. This is information about both material and spiritual life. And it was not just information or knowledge. It was also developing skills again for both material and spiritual life. This is where he was in Maharishi Vashisht's ashram. Maharishi Vashisht gave him full knowledge of yoga. It's called Yoga Vashisht. It's not yoga as in we know yoga again, asana, pranayam. It's different. So Yoga Vashisht is itself a very elaborate text it is a dialogue between Maharishi Vasishtha and Lord Ram. So there he gives him both material and spiritual knowledge and skills. This is the time to prepare for life. The second stage is strengthen. So this is the phase when after he comes back from the Gurukul, this is a very important phase of life, I think, uh, where when he is home, suddenly Vishwamitra comes. Maharishi Vishwamitra comes and he comes and demands from Dasharath. He says, I want Ram to come to the forest with me. And very interestingly, the age of Lord Ram there is described as, I think, 15, 16. So just reaching that adolescence, just after that adolescence, is beginning to discover himself. So saying, I want Lord Ram to come to the forest with me because this forest is filled with demons and he has to ward off. These demons are not allowing us to actually to perform our yagyas, etc. Whatever is relevant, it's not allowing the society to grow. So he has to come and fight the demons. And so Ram goes with him. And what happens in this process? So the first resistance, and that's interesting again on parenting. First, Dasarath says, no, I'm not going to send Ram. I love Ram. Why will I risk him? This is not Ram's job. Take my army. They will fight the demons. I won't send Ram. Because he had obviously gotten attached to Ram. He had gotten Ram after a full yagya, the conscious parenting. He wasn't getting a son. So how would he continue his vansh, the Surya vansh? So there's a backstory is there's a full yagya. He gets a boon. That's how he gets 4 sons from 3 wives, etc. There's that whole backstory around getting Ram. So he's very attached to Ram and his son. So he says, I can't send them to the forest. It's very risky. He's so young. He's just 16. He can't survive in the forest. How can I send him? But then, obviously, Vishwamitra reminds him, this is your duty as the king, as a parent, to send him. And so out of like almost unwillingly, he sends Ram. And then he says, Lakshman, you also go with him. So only Ram and Lakshman go with Vishwamitra and they go into the jungle. And then there's a whole kant on this. There's a whole chapter on the adventures there. Adventures, or what is that adventures about? He's going, fighting demons. And with every fight, there is, I think, Ahilya, all those stories. He's fighting different demons. And all of those demons are about the demons within us. Right? This whole story, as I said, who have seen the Ramayana, this is our journey. So he's fighting, he's learning. At every stage, every demon he fights, he learns how to fight. He actually starts building his repertoire of skills, of new weapons that he's going to need in the next stage when he's put for Vanvas for 14 years. He doesn't know, but he's preparing. He's strengthening. So he's applying all that he has learned in this, learning, refining, strengthening, deepening his skills, his knowledge as he's going deeper. And Vishwamitra supports him that. And at the end, when he's successful, he gives him even more special weapons at the end of it. More special weapons to prepare him. And how does this phase end? It's very interesting in the Ramayana how this phase ends for Ram. He takes, Vishwamitra only takes Ram, Lakshman to where? To Mithila, where Swayamvar of Sita is happening. So the end of this phase is when Ram meets his partner on this journey of life. Right? So that's the second stage. And then the third stage, the adulthood. Now when this scale is refined, is to evolve. That's the stage of life. Adulthood is about evolution. This is where, again, connecting it with that, this is, parenthood is as much of a journey for the child as much as it's for you. So we are mostly, as parents, all of us are in this phase of evolve. This doesn't change. We have some skills we have built, we have strengthened. So in this strength and evolve cycle, we are currently. And this is the story where the story of the 14 years of Vanvas, of forest life is. Again, it's the most difficult part of life where you spend there, you're separated from your longing, the deepest thing that you long for, which is peace, joy. And you apply the deeper lessons, you win the battle, the inner battle of the Ravan within you, of the Kumbhakaran within you, of the Meghnath, your delusions within you. In this, you may have to refer back who haven't seen the Ramayana part of our session, but this is that story. To me, I find this very, very informative even on this. To show that, and then you reach this place where you are in joy, in peace, in Ayodhya, as we saw. Ayodhya is a yudh. There is no yudh, there is peace. So you reign over Ayodhya. This is the journey, the one way of seeing this. And this summarizes also to some extent what we saw earlier, the 8-stage life. It's very elaborate, complicated, and I think I haven't understood Ramayana at that level. Maybe if I do or understand the skills that Maharishi Vashisht, was giving to Ram in Yog Vashisht, that phase 1 will get further split up. That phase 1 that we saw in the earlier part. In phase 2 is through different ways of learning. We see this in another story. So I'm today also communicating this with stories, and that is the story, I think my favorite story, the favorite story of Hanuman. Because that's the one I know. Again, Hanumanji is my object of love, object of devotion. So Hanumanji story, this story we know as a child. Again, he's built his skill, his will. So his will, his intention now, he likes, he desires the fruit. He desires, he sees the sun, he thinks it's a delicious fruit, and he jumps. There is infinite possibilities. Our entire nervous system is open at this time. So he jumps, he reaches. In the legend, the sun, he becomes big and he gobbles up the sun. He has that infinite power. As a child, that infinite possibility is there. But as soon as he gobbles up the sun, what happens? The whole world is in darkness. Nobody can survive because sun is the source of all energy. So once he does that, all the people are very anxious. So they go to the Devas, they go to Indradev. All Devas go to Indradev because they can't fight Hanuman. They know they can't fight Hanuman. So they go to the Lord of the Devas, Indradev, the king of the Devas, not the Chota Mota Deva, the largest, the biggest of the Devas. That's what you need to control the child. And what does he do? He uses his thunderbolt, his most powerful weapon, that hits Hanumanji on the chin, and his mouth opens and the sun comes out. So that's why both names of Hanumanji comes from the Hanu means chin. So having a split in the chin means Hanuman. And the Vajra, that's Bajrangavali. So what does Vajra do? It makes him unconscious. It still doesn't kill. So his Anga, his body is stronger than the Vajra. So both his names, Bajrangbali and Hanuman, come from this incident. So, but he gets unconscious. He falls down. His unconscious lying. So now his father, Pavan Putra, he is. So his father, Pavan Dev, Vayu Dev, he gets angry. Why did you make my son unconscious? I will take away Pavan from the world. So now he takes away Pavan. Again, people are dying. Each cell of our body is dying because there is no Vayu, there is no Prana. Right? So then the people say, no, we don't want to harm him. Please give Vayu. We'll wake him up. We will give all the boons. So in fact, all the Devas, Agni Dev, Surya Dev, everyone gives him full blessings, gives him special powers. Surya Dev becomes his guru, enlightens him the most, gives him the Param Gyan, everything. But they also say one thing. They say, he's become all Jnani, but he's still a child. He doesn't know how to use his powers. So in that process, in his innocence, in his absence of wisdom of how to use his powers, when to use his powers, he will end up harming others. Like right now, he might eat the sun up. So we need to constrain him. We need to say, put his powers under check. And there are boundaries built around this. So he's here for a special purpose in this world, but we'll have to put constraints on him, put boundaries on him, because otherwise he will cause harm to himself, not to himself, but to others definitely, because he doesn't know how to use his powers, how to control his powers. So they put that power control on him. But then later on, he was released. He learned to use all his powers. When was that? Anybody remembers when was that? When was the moment then he starts getting back his powers? He remembers all his powers and starts using them. No?
Yeah, I think when he was preparing to cross that ocean now, he wanted to go to Lanka to know about the whereabouts of Sita Ma. So
Yes.
that time he was, yeah.
And what was important about that time? That he was living his purpose. He was beginning to start unfolding his purpose to be, his purpose was to be the Param Bhakt of Ram.
Yes.
Surrendering to Ram. And there was an 800-mile ocean. Nobody could jump across.
Mm.
And it seemed impossible again, but then all his powers came. And then after that, we know all during that battle, all the wonderful things he did. Later on, he did. So it became Atulit Baldhama. Ramadut Atulit Baldhama. So that's when all his powers got unleashed. So that's his phase of life. The first phase to prepare. He got the powers, but they were constrained. I think that's the story of everyone. Our nervous system has infinite possibilities when we are born, but we put boundaries. And every parent, and that's why I'm sharing this, because every parent, as a parent, you will put those boundaries because they are for their own good. Otherwise, the child doesn't know. You baby-proof your apartment now. He doesn't know you don't have to poke holes in that electric socket. What are the stairs for? You have how to cross the road. Those are the norms. You have to build those norms, build those rules at some stage in life. But eventually, each one also has to outgrow those. And the same is the story of us. Each individual. That's what I have learned about my story of life, my childhood, my adult. So my story was, I was put very different kind of boundaries in my life. I had a very good childhood, a very loving parents, a loving elder brother, fantastic. I had no trauma, I would say, in my life. My trauma or development anything was that I was overprotected. I never got a chance to see world, to see that, oh, I always thought the world is so nice because the people around me were so nice to me. So when I started living my life outside, when I started going first to a hostel and then to my workplace, I was very naive in the beginning. I thought, I really literally thought everything was possible and tried to reach the sun and got burnt in the process because, yeah, that's not how the physiology was. I learned those things the hard way in later on in my life, slowly. And I have to now cultivate my opinion. So I have taken a long time to cultivate my opinion. Till about almost 5 years, most things my response would be, I don't have an opinion. Because that power of will, that stage 4, I didn't have that developed as much in me. I didn't have that. I didn't have an opinion of myself. I could solve very difficult problems. I cracked JEE. That was a mathematical, scientific problems that, but when it came to real world things, like simple things on choice of what clothes to wear, I didn't have an opinion. I used to follow very simple. Mostly still I do. That has helped me in matters of clothes and food and all. It helps me now because I don't have too much of a opinion, but I do have an opinion now. I know what not to, what yes to. But there was a phase I didn't. I said, whatever is coming, keep having. So I did have things which were harming me. I did get into ill health because of that, because I didn't have an opinion. I said, जो भी हो रहा है अच्छा हो रहा है world में. But it's not true. That's not how the world is. World is a mixture of both. And I've learned that the hard way. Last 5 years, I started creating more opinions. Now, sometimes to state my opinion is hard because I'm not used to stating my opinion. So that part of my nervous system is not fully evolved. It's still evolving. I can still experience it in my body when I have to express my opinion. It takes a lot in me to express my opinion. It doesn't seem like that sometimes, maybe in these sessions because I express it now, but it took me a process to get to this workshop also. It takes effort on my part to say, okay, I will express my opinion and see whatever people take, they take up to them, but I will try and express my opinion. But it doesn't come still very easily. But over the last 5 years, it's gotten easier, more benefiting from all of that. Otherwise, it was very hard for me. So that's my journey. And that's everyone's journey. So as parents, firstly, you will affect your child in your own unique way. In our trauma sessions, trauma therapies, when we learn, they say every parent has their unique imprint of trauma on their own child, just like you have yours. And your child will have to learn, go through this journey of figuring it out at some stage. Just like, and I think these stories of Ram, of Hanuman, and any other, I think if you take the story of other stories and go in detail, Ganesha, Shiv, everyone will start seeing this pattern. Because those stories were there to teach us some of these very deep concepts of human life in a very easy way. so that we get it. But we have to go a little deep to understand in their entirety, in their originality, not sort of sometimes the way it's presented to us. But look for these signs, because these, if we don't look for these patterns, we won't get it, right? We'll just see them as stories and either reject them or take them at face value and be very gung-ho about it. When we start looking at them through this lens, that this is about human growth, human development, about evolution, about connecting with ourselves, about connecting with our spirit within us. And that's the journey you have as parents, that's as individuals, that's the same journey your child has. In that, you and your child are the same. There is no difference. Or any other child. If you're a teacher, I know there are teachers. So Seema Didi here is there also, and maybe others also as a teacher also. It's the same journey. Every child, in that, you and your child are the same, because you have a same journey. You may be at different stages. Physiologically, you are at different stages. Psychologically, you may also be in some things at the same stage. Sometimes, particularly when they get to this pre-adolescence, or rather adolescent stage, you may be in the same journey as your child. It may not be even different. And I've seen that when I've interacted with some teenagers now, I do find, oh, they are dealing with stuff that I am also dealing with now. And in my 40s, it's no different, because I didn't deal with them then. I'm dealing with them now. So they are dealing with them now also. So in that, sometimes it's the same. The psychological journey is the same sometimes. With that, I'll take a pause. I think this is the longest I have ever spoken continuously, but I wanted to give this full picture, because otherwise it's a half-baked picture and it doesn't give that sense. I hope it wasn't too boring, but I'll take a pause here and see thoughts, comments, questions as you hear this, how this is landing for you, because then only we'll go to the next part. Yeah, I'll keep this image for some time. So we have this three-phase model at least in our, or maybe this one. Yes. So yeah, anybody, please just see how this is landing for you, whatever, just reflections. This is also the first time I think I'm sharing it with anybody. So it would be good to just get your thoughts. Does it fit in? You are parents. As I said, it's not mine. So it's also maybe testing a little how this is landing, not making sense, not making sense in your own journeys, both as parents, as individuals, what you see with children around you.
So, Sandeep, right. So the thing is that that means this is a session where we have to reflect, right? That means uh, the one of the biggest challenges that is happening, or I have experienced while going through this, and again I go back about that preparation before, how we can prepare to be parents, what is the conscious level, because most of the things that we did as parents, most of it is reactive, not proactive, because proactively could, other than the physiological needs, usko khana dena hai, that means you have to give them food, you have to sleep properly, give them the vaccines or medicine and all those things. Everything else is reactive. How do you, that means you talked about that, when if you go back to that slide in the beginning, yeah, give them that spiritual and life understanding. There is no, in today's world, the first thing the child learns is or ABCD. That means that is right, how to write a language. But before that, in truth, the child has the ability to grasp thoughts already. And we do not give any importance to that at all. we say education starts when they learn the first letters, which is not A. So how do you,
So it's
how
up
do
to
we
us how we define it, right? So I would resist from saying this is how everything everywhere happens or everyone does it this way or any
No,
which.
no, I am talking about in normal situation, how we kind of went through parenting. So question is that how do you do it differently?
Yeah, I think we'll come to that. Maybe just
Okay.
if this is how this model, this structure also does it fit in? Like how does that sound, right? Simali, you had something to say, right? Go ahead, please. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah. I just wanted to say ki we have to, that preparing stage now, there actually the parents' quality time with the child is required, and which at at this stage both the parents are working, they don't have time, they leave their children with the caretakers and all. That is the time where the child should be taken care of.
Sure. And
That is, yeah, that is,
my understanding still, right, is
yeah.
it's never too late. So I think both
Yeah,
you
it's
and
never too
Sudeep
late.
are
I'll
saying
give you
like
an
the
example.
prepare time is gone for
Yeah,
children.
I'll give you an example. I was recently I had gone to gym. I was exercising, and a lady, she had brought her daughter. She's in class 2. So she came and she was asking, "What is this? What is this?" One or two questions she replied, and after that she said, "Stop it. This is not going to help you anyway. This thing anyway in any way." So at that time, I just felt bad, and I just went to that girl and I said, yeah, and started giving answers to her questions. And then her mother was looking at him. Then I said, yes, by not answering, you are uh, like you're not letting her to be curious. You are saying, killing her curiosity.
Yeah.
So this is where the parents have to be with their children.
Yes.
They are not supposed to be tired of them. They have to love that time. That they have to love those initial years. Na? That is what is
My
required.
only request now, Ismail, and I'll share that later, and at least whatever I have understood till now, in parenting now, it's best to avoid the word should.
The word?
The word should.
Should.
There is no should.
No should. Okay.
Yeah, there is no should. Parenting is you have been parents, I haven't been, but I have seen my parents. I work with many other parents. It's a tough thing, right? It's a tough place to be.
Yeah.
So there is
There are no proper guidelines for that.
correct. So there is no should. There is no training also, like
Yeah,
Sudeep
yeah.
was saying. So if we use the word should now, वो बहुत फिर guilt, wrong, वो सब आता है. So it's very important, I believe, and I have seen that parents themselves should be first compassionate with themselves as parents. And that's why I shared that very important thing. And I
They have to be
that
prepared.
every parent will create some mess in their child's life.
Yeah.
You will. There is no escaping. That's how it is designed. That's how nature has evolved. That's how nature has designed it. Your boundaries will be set in the nervous system. Some quote unquote trauma. That's why that timeline is all about, yes, a very ideal scenario, what should happen, but that never happens. That never happens. And so it's to be kind to yourself as parents first. Saying, ha, theek hai, I tried my best. I am sure that parent is trying their best amongst many things. She is not tired, even in the example you gave. She is not tired of the child. She is tired of her life probably. इतना कुछ कर रहे हैं फिर भी जिम आ रहा है और फिर कोई ये पूछ रहा है भाई वो ऑफिस में इतने लोगों को जवाब दे दिया उधर मच्छी वाले या सब्जी वाले से कर लिया इधर कितना कुछ कर रहे हैं राइट आजकल सो इट्स आई एम श्योर नॉट इजी and
Not
it's
external factors तो है ही है, affect करते ही है. External
so
factors,
first,
environment also affects.
correct. So my request to everyone is ये word should हटा दो क्योंकि should तो बहुत कुछ है लगाने को और अपने पे तो बिल्कुल मत
शुड
लगाओ
रहेगा तभी तो कुछ करेंगे. When it
ना
is
ना
should
ना
है कि हाँ हमें
ये
करना है.
अपने अपने को पहले इस चीज से फ्री करो should है तो कुछ करेंगे भाई क्यों should है तो कुछ करेंगे ऐसे ही करेंगे ना
टारगेट रहेगा कहीं तो पहुंचेंगे.
वो बहुत प्रेशर डालता है मेरे हिसाब से और पेरेंटिंग बिल्कुल भी इजी नहीं है आगे टेक इट फॉर योरसेल्फ कल्पेश
Yeah, it does.
I think
He's also saying good.
every parent
Yes.
Every
Go on.
parent does best to what he can, right? So sometimes it is about knowledge, sometimes about nutrition, sometimes it's about giving freedom, sometimes it is about restricting things, right? So everyone does it in a different way. So uh, whatever they are capable of,
Yes.
time, resource they have, right? So and but everyone, I think everyone can be proactive in whatever ways they want to, right? It is never reactive. They are proactive. Everyone is proactive, but in a different ways.
Yes. Yeah, everyone is in. I think as parents, each one of you, whoever all our parents are doing a fantastic job. You should always be congratulating yourself. बाकी तो, as I said, कुछ हनुमान जी पे जब constraint आ गया हमारे तो किस पर नहीं आ सकता है. He is the Mahabali, he is the Bajrang Bali. So
I
yes,
think,
good.
sorry. Uh, I giving a goals or targets to children, and I am telling you that when I've gone through again as a child myself, and also my children. So I think and it is a challenge. The other challenge that we are not talking about, that we are currently talking about, that you are in an ideal space, ideal surrounding, practically in a vacuum. We are saying that, okay, it is only the child and
No,
the
I don't think we are
parent there.
saying that. We are
Ah.
not saying that. Yeah,
No,
I
no,
don't
no.
think we are saying
What
that.
I'm saying, I'm not saying you are saying that. Till now, we are having that conversation first to understand that. But one of the challenges that happens is that the whole surrounding, the society, the schools and everything that you talk about, they create their own uh, challenges, that means in a simple word, but own dimensions. And how to handle those dimensions is also part of learning to be an appropriate parent. So, because those are important, those are very important. I will tell you that means
The externalities, I don't think any of this model is leaving out the externality. In fact, the whole story of, I think, Ramayana, the whole concept of a forest there is the real world. The Rakshasas are all the external and internal demons that are there. It's all the challenges we face. So none of this is void of the external context. In
Yes.
fact, it's actually completely in the external context. It's set there. There is no, if anything, only the early stage, if can be in that prepare a little bit, you can control the environment. Uske baad to kuch bhi nahi kar sakte. That's the whole idea, that you're preparing for that. Also,
There are small
some
things.
other voices. I think Neha had unmuted. So Shaun has shared a little on chat. So good. Thank you, Shaun. He's saying, I'm learning to let go of shoulds and shouldn'ts. That's the NVC, which is non-violent communication. Good. Others, Preeti, Neha, Ruby's also shared. I agree, Sandeep. It's no right or wrong in parenting. It's a lifelong learning process. Yes. Thank you. Others, Andy. Yes, Neha.
No, I mean, nothing to add, Sandeep. I think very rightly put. For me, I think should as a word is not just with respect to parenting. I think in general in life, should is the wrong word. It just creates a weird sense of target to everything. It might as well do it than to have a should. And you're right. I think I just to re-echo that thought that it's a journey, and you can always learn in that journey. When my daughter is now 10 years, and every day I feel there is some learning that is happening on parenting. And I can't even teach somebody who has a 2-year-old kid to say, this is how you should do or you can do. Because I think everybody has their own pathways, which I think is, and I was listening to Sudeep, and I remembered listening to this TED talk, and I will end there, is something about nature versus nurture, is what you can do and what you will not be able to control because of externalities and their environment, which is absolutely about 50% of what they will do their own independent path. And maybe what you can do is to teach them those values and lessons, which helps them navigate through externalities. But how that external environment affects them is something that is beyond your control. When we can't do much about it, we just can play a role in just helping them address this. But yeah, that's just my take.
Thank you. Yes. Preeti, Yamini, Andy,
Yeah, I wanted to add or share a couple of things. Part of it from reflecting on having been a child myself at some point, from my nephews and nieces and from friends. I think the point that you made, Sandeep, about the imprinting of trauma as a parent and the inevitability of that. I think that's like a really important thing that I think most people forget, that it's inevitable. There's nothing that you can do to control it and or manage it for that matter. And I think that is one of the greatest fears that a parent has, that I'm going to screw up in some way, right? And I think that's also where the most acceptance, self-acceptance, compassion for yourself, and love for yourself really starts to make a difference. And I think that's sort of connected to the idea of the letting go of the should, because the letting go of the should, in my observation, ends up taking the focus out of the act of parenting, which is a verb, from the noun of being a parent and some idealized version of being a parent, because that's really where the should kind of takes us towards, is to be a certain way, to act a certain way. And in doing that, we tend to forget that parenting has two people involved in it, or three or more, right? The child is an essential part of it. The act of being a parent, independent of the child, sort of doesn't make sense, and the should ends up being an imposition which takes away your freedom and the child's freedom.
Thank you. Yeah, makes sense. Yes. Haven't heard from, yeah, Yamini. Go ahead, Yamini. Sorry, I'll just shut my window. I think. Are you guys hearing any background noise? There's some music playing outside. From my side or no? So my
Not me.
microphone is cancelling out. Good. So then I don't need to play. Go on.
Yeah, my 2 cents is that I think as long as we are making progress and learning from our experiences, I think that's what matters, right? Like it's not going to be perfect, of course. As you said, Andy said, there's obviously going to be trauma in every situation, but as long as we try to reduce it and we learn and we make progress, that's what matters. And I mean, the goal should be, again, should is the word, but I feel childhood plays a very important aspect of your life, right? So if we can give a happy childhood, I think that's my personal thing, that I think that's much more important, and that will make one a stronger person in life later on. Like if one goes through adversities or challenges, one is more mentally stronger if they have received love in their childhood. That's what my personal take is.
So, sorry, just on this should thing, right? So I just suggestions. You said, let's say you were saying the goal should be to give a happy child, right? Is that the fair statement that you were making, Yamini?
Sorry, say that again, Sandeep.
That you were trying to say the goal should be to give a happy childhood, right? So just try and say this, and I'm saying this because I found this very useful. Try saying it as the intention is to give a happy child.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right? So try and say and see how is your experience of saying it by changing the.
Yeah, the intention is to give a happy childhood.
You can be free from the should and still have an intention.
Mm-hmm.
And it will feel very different to you. Most important.
And one more thing is which did not come up yet, but I very strongly feel about is if there are two parents, The both of them, it is very important that they are aligned. Yeah, I don't think yeah, that's been brought up, but yeah, that's all.
Yes. No, thank you.
By the way, I am hearing some noise now in the
Noise,
background.
Let me, I think the volume is gone. Better now?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thanks, Anand, Radhakrishnan to join. Both are ARs now. We have two Anands with both AR also. So Andy and Anand will use it to simplify our lives. Yes, Preeti, you want to add anything before we move to the next part?
Yeah. One thing which I would like to add here, which has worked for me, I think I make it a point that I keep communicating to my kids on regular basis. I mean, communication is the most important thing, which I believe, because I have a daughter who is 17, and I sometimes don't know what is happening inside her, inside in her peer groups, what is cooking up over there. So I just make it a point to talk to her every day. And fortunately, both my kids are so talkative, so I get to know almost everything, whatever is happening in their world. My younger one is 8 years old. She briefs me each and everything, whatever is happening in her school and with her friends. So I think that has helped me a lot because I know everything about my kids. So for me, it has worked so far.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So Anand, we are just sharing each of, I think, participants were sharing as parents, and I would frame it this way: what is working as parents? So what in your experience has worked as parents? Maybe some others can also add with this question. What has worked for you as parents? Yes, Kalpesh.
So I think there was a discussion. The intention is to make sure that they have happy childhood, right? I'll modify it a little bit. The intention should be to make sure they have the happy life, because childhood is happy, but at the same time you are preparing for rest of the life, right? And you should ensure that they are prepared for rest of the life to be happy.
So that is your intention, right? For your children. Okay, good. Now I was just paraphrasing what she was saying. So that's her intention. That's your intention. That's good. And as we'll see with parenthood, it's very, again, individual, right? It's a very individual choice. And I think as we get to the next part, I think that's where there is some choice, which is what is the role of the parent? I think we were seeing. So in my sort of whatever I could understand or took away from this is that the role of the parent evolves, right? So if we see this, just if we say now that there are these 3 phases broadly, if not 8 phases of a child's life, the parent's role can evolve. In my sense, instinctive sense, even experience as a child, myself, as I work with, again, people, has been that there is a sort of redefinition of role at the different stages that is needed as sort of the child goes through the different stages of their growth, of their environment, of their external context, because that is changing. So 2 things definitely change: their physiology and their external context. That keeps changing, right, with time. And I think the role of the parent can evolve. There is an opportunity there for the role of the parent to evolve. And again, this is a time, I think, more for self-reflection, to see for yourself how, I would say, it has been, but more importantly, where you are as a parent, where your child is, and what is the role. Again, there is no recommendation, advice, or this blank. The right column will remain blank. The animation is not going to bring anything up there. But I think my only thought is that to identify, being able to see when that phase changes. I don't think there is a fixed age when it changes. I think, as we have discussed, it is different for different people, different environments, different social context. Uh, it is different when these changes evolve. The child's role in the human development evolves, but I think to see what you want as a role, like I think just now we started seeing, right? There is a different role, even at the different intentions you might set as a parent. And so seeing what is the role you want to play in the life of your child, most importantly, because this is again very individual, I think, very different in how you want to be a parent to your child, how you want the parent within you to evolve. The parent within you was born, so just like the child has an evolution in their cycle, the parent in you also can evolve. That's an opportunity for you. So you can define the different roles and see. So I'll take a pause here, keep some time, maybe take a couple of minutes at least for you to see where you are, how it has been. Yes, like Simaji saying different situations demand different parenting styles, different individuals. It's just like leadership again in corporates. Leaders have different styles. There is no one way of parenting, and that's why this word should, at least in the context of parenting, is that there is no should. Every parent will be different. It's your own style, it's your own way, it's your own intention. And it's a different context. The external context is different. Every child is different. They have come with their own. Even if you look at from an Indian philosophy, they have come with their own karmas, their own previous births. They are bringing that in. So they have brought an own life of their own. They are starting. They have to live their own life. There is nothing that can take that away. So you have to see what your role is at different, and particularly for parents with more than one child, it becomes even more challenging sometimes because your different children may be at different stages. So you will have to maybe adopt and play different roles for different children at different stages of their life. And one is physiologically different stages, and for parents, maybe children who have grown to a certain age, they might be at different psychological stages of their life. And then your roles might be different again. You might be playing very different roles. So conscious parenting, remember this is about conscious parenting. So conscious parenting is being saying, okay, what is the role I intend to play at this stage? And I have heard some, you're saying children are at 8, 10, 12. So just noticing when that stage, when that will evolve, when that change will happen. Are you conscious about you want a different role to be playing at the different stage of their life? And if yes, are you prepared to play? And most importantly, be compassionate with yourself as you change. I know it won't be easy. Any change takes time because it's your nervous system which has to evolve. Your nervous system is set in a certain way. You have been parenting in a certain way. So the parent within you has to evolve. And that won't be necessarily easy for everyone. It may require support in some form or the other. Choose that support. But the more conscious, the more aware you are, it can be more easeful. It can be more joyful. Okay. 2 minutes for you to think, reflect on what is the role you want to play at different stages. You can write it down if you want. It's for you. I'll keep the slide up. I'll tell you when it's 2 minutes. If you're done, give me a thumbs up. So we'll move to the next. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Shaun, Kalpesh. Thanks, Simati. Thanks, Yamini. Anand, are you done? Anand, Preeti, if you're done, give a thumbs up or we need some more time. Ruby, Neha.
We can continue. I may not have processed it fully, but I'm also just catching up and listening it.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Preeti. Okay. Front. Yes. Thank you. Ruby, Neha, Sudeep. Okay to move or need some more time? And yeah, you could think of, I think I didn't say that, but I don't know anyways, but if I were to think, I would think of various roles, like one way is all the, like a friend, a sakha, a parent who is disciplining, vatsalya, different bhavs. Again, it's just the intention that you're setting for yourself and probably those parenting styles you may have. Okay. Last, I think some thoughts on what practical things. I think these are practical, but also generic. Some of you have shared, and I'll also leave it more open if people want to share again their best practices, what has worked for them. Here, I would say, again, see what has worked for you as a parent. But I'll keep three themes. I'll give three themes around this. What are the themes or things that a parent can do, right? And sort of which enables this human development of the child in that sense, the whole development process. I think the first is to create a safe and secure environment. I think this time and again earlier and even now with Western science, there's a lot of evidence that the more safe environment, secure environment children have, they are more resilient later on in life. And sometimes this whole term, I don't know if people have looked at it, called ACE, Adverse Childhood Events. There's a lot of research on it. ACE, in fact, there is survey, they have identified certain events and there's a scoring. So they have found people with high scores on these adverse childhood events are more likely to later in life also develop more diseases, chronic diseases like diabetes, hypertension, etc. They are more likely to anxiety, depression. So that link correlation they are able to now find. So safety, security is the basic premise, and that's also what neuroscience, and this is based on neuroscience. Again, our nervous system, the autonomous nervous system, works on that, right? Basic premise is safety and security. Otherwise, the flight and fright, and we know the fight and flight response gets very activated. It stays in that zone. So fear as a motivator is not the, let's say, the ideal motivator. Sometimes you do need. That's why again there is no should. There are times when that is needed. So one will say, okay, there should be no fear. That also doesn't work. It is very contextual. It has to be, it's very important to be able to see that. And one of the common fears is comparison. I think what Srimati is also shared on the chat, comparison, competition, the fear of competition, right? So those are fears that don't necessarily serve in the long purpose. But so just saying, creating a safe and secure environment, giving that importance to safety and security. Second is create somewhere a boundary to learn. And that boundary, at least from nature, I've come to understand around a semi-permeable and a partially flexible. So the boundary, a good boundary is never a rigid boundary. There is flexibility. That's what nature teaches us. Even if we look at a cell, If we look at our structure, our skin, which is our final boundary, it is semi-permeable, it is flexible, it's not rigid. If this was rigid, at the slightest knock would break it, but it has the ability to take in some impact. But yes, at some point it also breaks. So there is some flexibility. It's not rigid, but it's not fully flexible like supreme elastic. There is a partiality there as well. So any boundary that you're setting, it gives room to explore curiosity, but it's not so wide that it totally again falls flat. So there is a need for a boundary, a semi-permeable. So it doesn't allow everything. Semi-permeability is important. It doesn't allow everything. So you will create controls around what experiences they will have and when. So again, getting comfortable with that, that's part of it. You will have to create that. But how you create it, that sense of safety and security is important. But broadly, there is some boundary also that is getting created around it. And that boundary, the two properties of boundary I see is semi-permeability and partial flexibility. That it's flexible, it gives room, but it also stops. It doesn't allow full flow. We can also see that in nature again, like one through just biology, cell, us, trees, thousands of examples. But even a simple example like a river will only flow if the banks are there. That boundary is needed. Otherwise, it will just inundate, it will just spread, the water will just flood the plains and it won't go anywhere. It won't reach the sea. It won't flow to the sea. So even for the river to flow a certain boundary, those banks are needed. So boundary is important at a structural level, but with these properties. In last but not the least, this is again built on neuroscience, time and again seen is role model. Nothing works like role model. If you want, you've said this, sorry, if I'm taking that example, you want your child to be happy, you be happy. You want your child to be curious, you be curious. If you intend your child to be less anxious, you be less anxious. If you want your child to play, you play. There is no better way. Again and again, it comes almost from neuroscience. We have these things called mirror neurons in our brain. This is established with science, mirror neurons. Mirror neurons, the task of the mirror neuron is to mirror whatever we see. That is how our brain develops. It's in our frontal cortex. It's very good again for teenagers. Right? So role model, whatever you role model, don't role model with the intention that your child will learn. Role model because you want it. Because again, children catch this energy very easily. And if they are in this rebel mode, they will actually go the other way. So you set your intention, do it for yourself, but role model, genuinely, try and be happy. Try and whatever you want your child to be. And that's what happens. This is the law of nature. This is what we have heard that story of the cap, right? The monkey. So the cap seller, I don't know if you've heard this story, but okay, I'll repeat it. So cap seller was going through the jungle. He had his bag full of caps and he fell asleep. He kept his caps. When he woke up, he found his bag was empty. And then he saw where did the caps go. And then he suddenly looked up and he found a bunch of monkeys on the tree. They were wearing the caps. He was wearing a cap. He said, now how will I get it? In his frustration, he just took it, threw his cap down. And then he saw some monkeys threw the cap down. Right? So then he understood, oh, okay, whatever I do, the monkey will do. We have evolved from monkeys. This is the mirror neuron, which is there in monkeys. It is there in us. And this is studied scientifically by studying the monkey's brains, because with monkey brains, we can do a lot scientifically. We can probe them, do open brain, we can insert, etc. Humans, we still can't. But you have understood these mirror neurons. And this is there. That is how our brain is evolved. So these mirror neurons are very important. They are there. Role model. Whatever right now you want your child, nothing can beat this. Yeah. Okay, Yamini, you have your hand up, please. Go ahead.
No, I was saying with teenagers, I think this is tough, or it's not working, at least for me. Like, for example, I want her to go outdoors. I go outdoors a lot. But for last few weekends, like, she's been just choosing to stay at home by herself. all afternoon. And this is a first for us. So this is like she's maybe she's testing her own, like, you know, what she can do by herself and all of that. So maybe it's a phase. So yeah, role modeling like is not working. I know in the long term it will work, but I'm just saying at least in the short term, it's not. The other thing is like I'm hearing her like, you know, say some bad words which nobody in our house has used so far, right? So they're learning from school. So there are places where role modeling probably, I mean, obviously it's helping that we don't say any bad words, but they will learn from outside still,
There are
right?
other ways. Yeah, there are other. That's part of the challenge of the external environment right now. But yeah, this happens. Role modeling happens, whether it's from parents directly or from outside. The best a parent can do is role model that behavior. It doesn't ensure. That's why I said we have to let go whether it will ensure that happens. We have to let go of that. And that's what we'll come to in the next part of what this is really about. But yeah, we have to let go of that. But do our part. You enjoy. You enjoy going out. You do it for yourself. And see what happens. Let it be. She will at some stage. It's getting embedded that this does give joy. So many things I have learned now, at least about myself, I do now because as a child I saw my father do it. I didn't do it then, but I do it now. Right? So it's 20 years later, but it's there. That you can call it muscle memory. Some memory is there. It does get built.
Yes.
It may not show up now. Yeah. So
yes, I've heard that from others too, that, you know, you just keep doing the right things and not now, but maybe 10 years later, they'll remember that and they will come back to it. That's what I hear.
They may come back to it. Again, they may come back to it. They may. It's their life, it's their journey. They have their own journey of life. We have our own journey. And that both are, as I said, sometimes they match, sometimes they don't. You can do what you can do, so keep doing that. Do it for your joy. They will see that. Yes, Anand.
Yeah, I don't know if these points have been discussed before, but as you were rolling down the list, I was thinking if there's anything else that comes to my mind as well. So I think there were two of those that came to my mind. So one is around, and this is live from what's happening in my house. And one is just obtaining enough observations about the child, कि वो हो क्या रहा है, in some sense understanding the child through these multitudinal observations and sort of getting a better frame कि वो कहाँ से आ रहा है, क्या कर रहा है, and it's empathy building process. Personally, I need to do it because I have a strong view and opinion, and therefore to understand where that the boys in my house are coming from, वो जरूरी है. And the good thing, I mean, the problem is that sometimes that moment seems important, and therefore उस time पे right करना is one, and second is to allow things to happen, knowing कि यार ये तो मतलब हर दिन की बात है, you know, if I just observe for 6 months, I'll find something interesting that can be dealt with, for instance. So I think it's more like just me saying to myself कि यार just have the patience to observe than to correct in that moment itself. I think that's one tendency I've seen important for me to think about. The second is to the whole role modeling thing. I think an extension I've maybe thought about is how do you also provide that, because the influencing also from the ecosystem. I mean, one is influence from within the house, and second is from the ecosystem, which means the kind of place one chooses to live in, the kind of school that we choose to send the children to, for instance, or not send this child to school at all, for instance. Like having because today, and I don't know that what's the proportion to it, but clearly a lot of influencing happens from the other outside of the house in some sense because of interactions and observations and things like that. And today I think there is a little more flexibility of making that choice कि कहाँ पे रहेंगे ताकि who do you see every day, who do you interact with every day, what do you see is happening, what are the kids around you doing, for instance, etc. I've sensed that's also a choice making for a parent to make ki, Acha, now that I've lived so far, now that I have 2 kids in my house, is this the right setup for me? Am I going to look at a different setup? Am I going to look at a different community, for instance, etc., to live in? Who the child interacts with? I mean, not that one has to over-engineer it, but knowing that uska role hoga, and मेरे पास वो levers भी हैं use करने के लिए to ensure that the child sees the right things and directly, indirectly picks on things which are right. And obviously, in all these, only the stimulus is in our control, the response is not. So to Yamini's point, even if we do all the right things पर भी मतलब उसका पूरा counter effect भी आ सकता है पूरी तरह से, तो वो तो है ही, as you said, that vritti is not in our control.
Yes.
But these at least have seen us some levers in addition to what we put in
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, I think those are good examples of also the boundary, right? The semi-permeable, flexible boundary. Who interacts with, what is the stimulus, like you said, whatever we can, what's happening. Yes, totally. It's a great example. Yeah. Others,
In
what is
fact,
working? What is working? Yes, Anand.
sorry, just it reminded me of one thing that, in fact, sometimes opposite, or maybe this teenage is the age when opposite karne ka hai, right? So there was a time when Vijay and I both were doing meditations every day, and she started hating it. She's like, "You guys just keep meditating all the time." So there is like an क्या बोलते हैं ना, negativity आ गई है about yoga and meditation, right? So that also can happen. Like if you're doing something and they just find, I mean, there's one aspect is they just find it uncool, right? Something that your parents are doing, that's not a cool thing to do. And then they might just get frustrated sometimes that, yeah.
Yamini, after this, Kalpesh, then you have to share something that is working.
So
Okay.
what has worked for me is like, say, initial years till 12th, 12 years or 13 years before the teenage, whatever you do, they will learn from you. You can become the role model. And at that time, you have to set the right boundaries and work.
What is working for you? What you did in your context?
So that at that time, whatever I've set the boundaries, whatever I've taught them, they learn. After that age, they go to the school and they learn from the friends, right? After that, whatever you do, they want to do exactly opposite of what you do.
Whatever I did, they were doing the
I did.
opposite.
I see. Yeah.
So
But
what worked then?
what I have noticed is whatever they have learned till say 12, 13 years age, that is stuck to them.
Okay. Good. So in that age, creating those right boundaries, environment worked for you. Has been
Right.
working.
Yeah.
Thank you. Others also, sir. Right now, I'm just keeping, and I'm being a little tighter on the policing. What is working? We have discussed a lot of issues. Each one of you who have been parents, something has worked, whatever you are doing. So you have to give an example of what has worked sometime. Yes, I mean,
I can go. So recently I've been reading a book called Ally Parenting. It was recommended by my pediatrician. So there are some things that really helped from that book. One of them is validating their feelings. So I think Indian parents, especially, or at least the way I was parented, and my natural instinct is to, give feedback. And intention is obviously to improve, but the natural instinct is to always give feedback and criticize. But so what I've learned is instead of that, trying to instead of going with that instinct, if we just validate their feelings, right? Like, yeah, this is tough, or this is sad or painful or whatever, right? So going with that, I think helps for sure. And avoiding power struggles, right? The other thing is, like, when they are doing, like, if they are having an emotional outburst, I used to take it personally a lot earlier. Like, they'll say a lot of mean things and it used to impact me. But now what I do is I think of it as like, this is a 2-year-old Niharika, kind of something happening, and it's not me, right? So not to take it personally, and just that helps me not getting impacted so much. And then I think the power is in us being in charge instead of trying to change them. If we are more calm, and then I think we can respond better, versus expecting them to change and trying to fix them.
Fantastic. Excellent. Very good examples. Thank you. Others, what is working? What has worked for you as a parent?
I think keeping the communication going, not be judgmental. That should not be judgmental. That is like my daughter now, she's 17. Okay, going to sleep at 4 o'clock, waking up at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. That means I just highlight affect things for her going to school in the morning or when she's trying to take exams in the morning, but leave it that. I think the main thing is that, and this is very difficult to say that we don't really control their lives. We can only tell what is we believe, guide them, like anybody, like give advice, not should, but just tell this is, I believe is the right thing, or this is can help you, and then leave it. And actually, truly leave it. You can have all the right thoughts about them in your heart, but leave it, saying that they will find the path that they are destined for. I don't own their soul. I'm very grateful that that soul is part of my life, but I don't own that soul. ये ownership गड़बड़ करता है.
Good. Yes, so Ruby sharing, empathizing with them when they go through highs and lows, and just giving a patient ear and listening to them has helped us both. Good. Thank you. Good. So we are also coming to close to a time, and I think close to the end also of the session. So I think end with this also, with these things. I think very what Sudeep said towards the end also. Parenthood is part of your journey of life. So I think remember, while the child has a journey, being a parent is your part. It is part of the Grahat Ashram. It's part of your Swadharma. People who have done the being in yoga. This is your, remember, this is all about your Karam yoga. So it's a very good opportunity for you to be. This is your phase 2 and 3. Strengthen and evolve. Use the principles of Karam yoga. You don't control it. You can set the intention. You can do practice. But you have to let it be. You have to finally surrender, not be attached to the results. Because that's what parenting, at least in the yogic system, that's where it falls. This is part of your Grihast Ashram. If you are a Grihast, this is part of your Swadharma. In Swadharma is to be done with these principles of Samatvam Yogichate, or Yoga Karma Kaushalam. Just, yeah, the basic principle of whatever we have seen in Karam Yoga, whoever has seen. Karmanyavadhikaraste maphaleshu karate. So that's how parenting works. At least that's what I have come to understand from this. And just bringing this back up from where we started, remember, this is what conscious parenting is who gave birth to whom. Yes, you along with your partner gave birth to the child, and the child gave birth to the parent within you. This is your journey as well, your journey as a parent. Let it evolve. There is no one way. If nothing, if you can, I think if there is no should in your mind, be compassionate with yourself also as you go through this journey. See this as an opportunity for yourself also to evolve, to continue your journey of being Swasth, of being yourself, of being aligned with yourself. And there the parent in you will evolve. Your version of the parent will evolve. And I am hoping in some time we'll have one of you taking this workshop, a full workshop on parenting, because from experience, I can't. I am not being a parent. I am not an experiential. I can only give this share this broad outlook. But how it fits in, how it works, how your experience is. To me, I see this definitely there. And we have a lot in the Indian system to talk about. Some of it we have shared, but I think definitely with the Karam Yoga, it does fit in very nicely. I'll close. I'll be around if there is more to discuss, but we'll close for others who want to leave. Some have left. We can close and then we can continue our conversation for others who want to. Yeah, sit comfortably. You're on a chair. Let your feet be comfortably on the ground. Your back supported. Gently close your eyes. Repeat after me. May all be sukhi, khush, joyful. May all be swasth, sehatmand, healthy. May all be in shanti, sukoon, peace. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of Sunday. Based on wherever you are, how much ever is left. So thank you. And I'm around if there are more questions. Anybody wants to ask.
Hello, happy Holi.
Happy Holi.
Happy Holi.
Happy
Good.
Holi.
We have Raghav. Wow, he's grown a lot.
Happy Holi.
Happy Holi. Happy Holi, Raghav.
तू नहीं बोली है
कौन नहीं बोल रही है बेटा?
तू नहीं बोली है
जो भी बोलेगी
नहीं
सब
बोल रही है अमिनी नहीं बोल रही है उसको फोटो
Happy Holi.
हैप्पी होली
Happy Holi.
Happy Holi. Happy Holi. Look at this night book.
Oh,
I had a question or two.
yes, go ahead.
Ball.
अच्छा, मैं बात कर लूँ जरा एक मिनट.
Mine ball. Mine ball.
I'll catch up on the recording as well. If you don't mind, just like in a couple of lines, just tell me शुरुआत में आपने क्या cover किया था, just so that I connect with what you shared later.
Yeah, so basically I shared, I think, one, what to expect, the fact that I don't have any experiential knowledge of parenting, so there is no advice here, but there was some discussion around it. And
Baba.
then
Baba.
sort of a way to think of human development in which to see where the child development is, and seeing that both from a Western psychology, there is this body dynamics framework, which is there, which we learned in somatic experiencing, and the Indian system, what we can learn from Ramayana and other stories around what's this cycle or phase of human development. So in that context, I think that's when you joined. What's the role of a parent? It was put in that context. Otherwise, it's just outside any context. So the context was so both from a Western psychology as well as in.
I saw the stages of development being the first part. It looks like that was the majority of the conversation at the start.
Yes, that's sort of laying that out. Both, but from a Western. So Western is more eight stages. Indian was 3. So I continued with 3 because it's simpler. But yeah.
Achha, 3 stages of development, which is the ones you showed, the pre-adolescent.
That is the Indian, what I have understood as the Indian. The Western is, and I have understood, it was simplification than any proper framework, just to simplify it. Yeah, at least stages, but the Western is more detailed, it's 8. So it breaks the first phase into 7 sub phases.
Okay. I'll catch on the document you share in the recording as well. But it's good. It's a nice topic to talk about. I think I think now, like a few things I've seen and read, it's like the way you put it at the end, saying that it's a part of our own journey to be had as well as parents. And like when there is a child in the house, then you just have to ensure that you are you're working towards your best behavior, or you're working towards your own development. That's when automatically I think this is Sadhguru quotes typically that, and there are different commentaries he also has on how to be a parent, how to raise the child in the right way, etc. And his thing is like, you do your stuff right and automatically the rest will happen. So there is no other secret sauce to it per se, which is fascinating, I think. And to see, yeah, I mean, it both takes one back to one's own childhood, ki acha, us time pe kaise tha, and sort of, it's human development process live in action. So I think that's for those in the field, it's also fascinating because then a lot of that form of learning also comes कि अच्छा skill कैसे build करते हैं कोई भी, या फिर कोई भी mindset कैसे develop होता है, for instance. Like, just to see that live in action is quite a fascinating thing. So frustrating, but but I think very clearly very time consuming. I mean, it done the right way or whatever it is, like for me especially, remembering the respect time देना is very important. उसको मतलब side में रख के या फिर hoping that it'll happen by the side, I think I'm realizing for me that isn't working. For me to think of it as I mean, literally when I met some people last week, I said my primary role right now is a parent. बाकी सब secondary, tertiary में चले जाते हैं इस time पे.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the very important ones as per even our system, right? As a grihast, it is. You have chosen to have, so it's a very important part of the Swasth. Nothing takes away. Good. Yeah. And as you see the recording, feel free to see if there are any questions on this. Happy
to do that. It struck me late. मेरा शाम में 6:30 I remembered कि join करना है, but by then I had not set an alarm but thankfully 8:30 याद आया कि अच्छा ऐसा कुछ था happen करने के लिए.
Good. I'm glad.
For your patience having me over in the middle.
Thank you.
I'll take a leave then.
Chalo, bye. Yeah.
Okay, bye.
How many you have?
Yeah, so
Huh?
wanted to share something.
Bolo.
So we had a interesting discussion with my daughter yesterday.
With your daughter?
Yesterday or day before. She was little upset and I asked her why. And she said, so I have another one son who is younger, 4 years younger than her. Okay. So she said, Papa, मैं तो कॉलेज चली जाऊंगी, फिर तो पीछे आप ही अकेला हो जाएगा. ओके, वो किससे बात करेगा? मुझे उसकी ज्यादा चिंता है कि मैं चली जाऊंगी तो उसका क्या होगा, है ना? मैं चिंता मतलब हम है, बोले नहीं, वो आपसे शेयर नहीं करता, मेरे से ज्यादा शेयर करता है. एंड शी इज वरीड कि वो चली जाएगी तो फिर क्या होगा उसका.
इंटरेस्टिंग. वो कहाँ जा रही है बाय द वे कॉलेज?
तो अभी कॉलेज हमने डिसाइड नहीं किया, अभी 2-3 कॉलेज का आया है उसके पास ऑफर.
अच्छा.
अभी मार्च एंड तक बाकी का आएगा, उसके बाद डिसाइड करेंगे.
कहाँ से आ गया?
So one is University of California, San Diego.